So, of course, that breaking news overnight, the Labour Party securing victory in 2 by-elections, getting the constituencies of Wellingborough and Kingswood.
Well, Damien Egan, the former mayor of Lewisham, took Kingswood from the Conservatives and put a Labour MP in the seat for the first time in 14 years.
Well, Labour also took Wellingborough from the Tories in a landslide election victory for Sir Keir Starmer.
The Tories have now lost more by-elections in a single parliament than any administration since the 1960s.
Let's talk to Labour's National Campaign Coordinator and the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden. Good to see you, as always, Pat. I mean, is this people turning to Labour, or is this a case of Tory voters just not turning out?
They are turning to Labour. I spent all day yesterday knocking doors here in Kingswood, working towards a really fantastic result last night, and I met former Conservative voters who are turning to Labour, and they're turning to Labour because the Labour Party's changed. It's got a different world outlook now, a different outlook on the economy. It's offering a good programme. People want change. And Damien Egan, our candidate here last night, he represented change, and that's why they backed him, and that's why we were able to overturn such a big Conservative majority. And it's the same story in Wellingborough, and hopefully, we'll see what happens when the real test comes in the general election later this year.
Is it change, or is it just a mighty helping hand from Reform UK, who managed to split the right-wing vote last night, especially where you are now in Kingswood? The Tories would have held on last night if it wasn't for Reform.
Oh, I think there's a bit of fantasy football going on with this, and I think it's an enormous and mistaken assumption to assume that every vote for Reform, if Reform wasn't there, would automatically switch to the Conservative Party. And it's not just my opinion. YouGov actually polled this recently and found that less than a third of Reform voters would vote Conservative if the Reform candidate wasn't standing. So I think the Tories are making a mistake in taking refuge in this idea. And what's going to happen now is they're going to have a debate where half of them will want to turn the Conservative Party into Reform and the other half will be wanting to do a deal with it. But while they're doing that, we're going to get on with being out there with our programme to grow the economy, to improve public services, to drive forward the energy transition, and to work for a better deal for the British people, because they're getting a bad bargain at the moment where they've paid higher taxes, but the economy's in recession and their living standards are contracting. Real change is needed, and the Labour Party can bring that, but the Prime Minister's got to stop just sitting in number 10 waiting for something to turn up and get on with calling the election.
A couple of things you said, Pat. One is that Labour's offering a good programme. Well, we don't know what that programme is. Let's be honest. And the other thing is, you say the Labour Party's changed. Well, has it changed on anti-Semitism?
Well, let's go through some of the programme. Let's start with changing the planning laws to get more houses built. We plan 300,000 houses a year if we get elected. I talked about the green transition. We'll set up GB to a publicly owned energy company to drive that energy transition. On health, we're going to have 2 million more NHS appointments and procedures paid for by getting rid of that non-dom tax break. That's a choice the Conservatives wouldn't make. We'll have a breakfast club in every primary school. We're going to improve rights for people at work. We're going to have mental health support in schools, which is a really important issue and a good investment in the future of our young people. Well, we've got to start by changing the planning laws to get more investment into the UK. It's too difficult for investors to come here and build things. It's too difficult to get homes built. And then we've also got a mortgage guarantee scheme to help people buy those houses once they're built. We're never going to repeat the disaster of the Liz Truss mini-budget, where the Tories, in a fit of ideology, crashed the economy, mortgage rates rocketing, bailouts of pension schemes. We're going to act with much more stability than they have done. So we've got a good programme that will put before people whenever the Prime Minister's got the courage to call the general election that the country needs.
And Pat, sorry, you didn't actually answer Stephen's question about anti-Semitism. So has the party actually changed?
Oh, absolutely. And I think when you look at the quick and decisive action that Keir Starmer took this week, it's a big thing to do, you know, to withdraw support from a general election candidate when nominations have closed and you can't then replace the candidate. I've been around politics for quite a long time and seen many elections. I don't remember that happening before. It might have. I mean, my knowledge wouldn't be perfect, but I don't actually remember it ever happening before. And when he said he would do that in the Labour Party, he was serious about it. And this week, his actions showed that that was the case.
Pat McFadden, always good to talk to you. We look forward to doing it a lot more over the coming months. Thanks very much indeed.